A crow knows your face. It will remember you for years, and it will tell its children who you are. What does animal intelligence actually look like when you stop measuring it by a human yardstick? And why does an octopus run on 3 hearts, pumping blue blood through a body that can solve puzzles a vertebrate would fail? These questions lead to a hidden architecture, and it changes everything. You have felt that quiet burn, the moment someone dismissed an animal as pure instinct, and you saw something else in its eyes. The system rewards a shallow version of smart, and you are the one who notices the gap. We are taught that other minds are simple, driven by hunger and fear, nothing more. But the evidence tells a different story, and it begins with a single face you cannot forget. John Marsloff, the University of Washington researcher, walked around the university wearing a caveman mask while handling crows he had captured and tagged. He wanted to know if they could tell one human from another. The crows scolded him relentlessly. They dove at the mask, called alarms, and recruited other crows to the chase. Marsloff switched to a neutral Darth Vader mask. The crows ignored it completely. They knew exactly which face had threatened them, and they did not forget. Years later, in a different part of Seattle, the same crows still reacted with rage to that caveman. They had passed the memory to their offspring, who had never been captured. The next generation already knew your face. You knew something was happening behind those eyes. If you have ever felt that an animal was reading you, you know exactly what I mean. Subscribe to keep uncovering the hidden architecture behind every mind, because the next one we decode might be watching you right now. And in the comments, tell us the one animal you suspect has a mental file on you. I want to know if we are all being tracked by the same species. Now here's where it gets interesting. Crows can recognize not just faces, but specific emotional contexts. In controlled experiments, these birds have shown they understand the difference between a person who is holding a dead crow and one who is holding a stick. They recruit allies, form coalitions, and negotiate with threats. The standard model of animal cognition never predicted any of this. It assumed a brain of corvid size was too small for sophisticated social memory. But the mechanism is relational learning, not instinct. The crow builds a mental file for every face it encounters, and that file includes emotional weight, social status, and alliance structure. That is not reflex. That is cognitive architecture. You have felt that gap. The moment you saw intelligence where the textbook said, instinct should live, and you kept your mouth shut because you did not have the words to defend it. That is the frustration this channel exists to name. When you recognize a pattern others miss, the silence is yours alone. But the evidence says you were right. Look at the honeybee. It performs a waggle dance to communicate the exact location of food, including distance measured by the duration of its vibration and direction, indicated by the angle of its body relative to the sun. If the sun moves behind a cloud, the bee corrects the dance accordingly. That is symbolic communication, not simple chemical signaling. The mechanism behind it is mental representation of a 3-dimensional world, translated into a symbolic code. New Caledonian crows take the next step. They bend wire into hooks to extract prey from crevices. In laboratory conditions, they spontaneously bent straight wire into compound tools without prior training. They understand that the wire is pliable, that the hook changes the mechanical advantage, and that the tool must be shaped before the prey is reached. This is not random trial and error. It demonstrates mental simulation of cause and effect, what psychologists call analogical reasoning. The crow visualizes the problem, envisions a solution, and executes the plan. The same architecture appears in the dolphin, who recognizes itself in a mirror. In one study, researchers marked the dolphin's body with a temporary stain placed only in a location visible in the reflection. The dolphin spun and examined the mark at the mirror. It understood the image was itself. That requires a theory of mind, the capacity to reflect on one's own identity. The mechanism is not a single skill. It is a cascade of cognitive layers that converge in a single moment of self-awareness. That moment of self-awareness is the same architecture you carry. The dolphin, the crow, the chimp, they all built it from different materials. Subscribe to join the community that sees the pattern, because this is not a random collection of facts. This is the shape of intelligence itself. And in the comments, write self if you have ever seen an animal recognize itself in a reflection. I want to hear your story, which brings us to a deeper question. Why would a brain evolve this way? If intelligence is metabolically expensive, consuming up to 20% of available energy, why build relational learning, symbolic coding, and self-awareness into a body that could survive on simpler instincts? The answer is hidden in the trade-offs. Elephants have the largest brain of any land animal. That brain supports complex social memory, empathy, and ritual behavior toward their dead. But it also requires a gestation period of nearly 2 years, a long childhood, and a social structure that depends on matriarchal knowledge passed across generations. The elephant pays a heavy cost for its intelligence. The crow pays a smaller cost in metabolic terms, but it pays in social friction. Crow societies are hierarchical, and individuals who remember too many faces are involved in too many conflicts. The cost of being the smartest bird in the group is being the bird nobody trusts entirely. The smartest dogs can understand up to 250 words and gestures. That places them at the cognitive level of a 2-year-old human child. But the dog does not use that vocabulary to form abstract concepts. It uses it to navigate its relationship with a specific species, humans. The mechanism is not language acquisition in the human sense. It is rapid associative learning combined with a highly tuned sensitivity to human social cues. The dog has built its cognitive lens around its ecological niche. That is exactly what every intelligent animal does. The architecture is not fixed. It adapts to the problem the species must solve. And that is not the strangest part. The chimpanzee named Washoe learned to communicate using American Sign Language. She did not simply mimic. She combined signs to express original meanings. She called a swan a waterbird without being taught the phrase. She signed dirty to a researcher who refused to give her a snack. After Washoe adopted her son Lulis, he learned over 50 signs by watching his mother, without direct instruction from humans. The architecture behind this is not a parlor trick. It is relational learning applied to symbolic systems. Washoe understood that signs had meaning, and that meaning could be manipulated to produce new expressions. The same underlying architecture that allows a crow to remember your face allows a chimp to insult you in sign language. Now here's the revelation you have been waiting for. Animal intelligence is not a series of isolated tricks. It is a hidden cognitive architecture built on the same fundamental components as human intelligence. Relational learning, mental simulation, symbolic communication, theory of mind. These are not special properties of one species. They are patterns that emerge wherever the ecological pressure demands them. The difference between a crow and a human is not the presence of intelligence. It is the depth of recursion, the number of layers, the width of the working memory. But the mechanism is the same. You have been measuring the wrong thing. If you have watched this far, you understand the cost of being the one who sees what others miss. Do not let that understanding dissipate. Subscribe to this channel, because we are only beginning to map the real architecture of mind. And in the comments, drop the one animal you believe we have underestimated the most. I want to see which species the viewers think will surprise us next. Think about this. The next time a crow watches you from a wire, it is not empty inside. That face you look at in the morning, it has been running a cognitive file on you since the day it first saw you. It knows your schedule. It knows whether you offer food or threat. It has told its children about you. And it is waiting to see what you do next. If you have watched this far, you already know the world is smarter than the textbooks admit. Comment the one animal that has always made you suspect we are not the only ones with depth. Drop your answer below, because that is the conversation the textbooks never finish.